call. I'm like, Lenny, man, my life has never been the same. And I miss you with every breath I take. And every day that passes, I'm one day closer to you. And you're one day further away from me in this paradigm that I'm living in. Just not wanting to be here without you has been really difficult. But I'm trying my best to heal in the healthiest manner possible to make you proud. And I want you to know that your death was not in vain.
On June the 22nd, 2019, 29-year-old Glenn Rebick went out to meet some friends in downtown Vancouver and never returned home. What was supposed to be a fun night turned tragic when Glenn bought what he thought was cocaine, but in fact, it was laced with a lethal batch of fentanyl. He died using a loan. Meredith Dan is his mother. Today she came to the beach to honor her late son and to remember who he was.
I hope you're peaceful, baby. Shredding in the clouds with your best friend, Mikey.
Rebick was a well-known skateboarder in the Vancouver scene and was well on his way of making a career out of it before he passed away. Glenn was Meredith's only child, and she recalls the moment police showed up 4 days after his disappearance and how she was delivered the next of kin notification.
About 4 o'clock in the afternoon, my sister and my niece were with me, and we looked outside and there was a police car sitting outside for a long time. And I didn't know if it was for me or if it wasn't. And then sure enough, I got a knock on the door. And when I opened the door, Sergeant Buckman, Frederick Buckman, came into my home. She went straight into the living room. She put her hands on her hips. And without anything to say, Miss Dan, you should sit down. Miss Dan, we have some bad news. She walked in and said, well, first of all, Glenn is dead. And at that moment, I went down on my knees, and my niece caught me. And then I yelled at her right then and there and told her she needed to work on her delivery.
Dan filed a complaint with the BC Police Complaints Commission about the officer's conduct.
To me, that was unacceptable. I didn't feel as though that was a very professional, compassionate, or understanding way of delivering the news. And it only took her 14 minutes from the time she left her car to come in and give me the news and go back to her car. And in her report, she stated that my apartment was really small and she felt uncomfortable in the moment. Not that I was uncomfortable receiving the most devastating news that my only child had passed away. The VPD didn't find anything in wrongdoing on her behalf. They said that it was professional, and I decided to appeal that decision.
Dan appealed to the Office of the Police Complaints Commissioner, who, after an investigation, found that the officer abused her authority and lacked compassion when dealing with her. The officer, Constable Frederick Buckman, appealed to the BC Supreme Court, but after 4.5 years, the appeal was dismissed. Buckman has been ordered to take retraining courses with a focus on humanity and humility when working with Indigenous people. However, the judgment only affects this one complaint and will not affect any change to the Vancouver Police Department's policies.
It was a fight that I was relentless. I wouldn't back down. It was the last fight I had for my kid, for my baby. We both deserved so much more respect in that moment. And I was not going to back down. And I don't think that had I been a Caucasian male in the West End, she would have treated me with such lack of respect as she did as an Aboriginal mother who lives in East Vancouver.
But for Meredith, this is a small victory, but it won't bring back her son.
Every time, with every update, with everything that's gone through in the 4.5 years with this battle, I keep getting brought back. in a time warp back to the moment that I found out, first of all, Glenn is dead. And it's taken that time. It's taken so much time for me to try to heal, because getting pulled back to that moment, I take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. But now that this is over, I'm hoping after 4.5 years, I'll be able to start moving forward the way that Glenn would want and expect me to, instead of just being sad all the time.
This countdown clock has been running on her phone since Glenn died. It's a constant reminder of that terrible day her life was torn apart.
This opioid crisis, the severity of that fentanyl that it has and how strong it is and how it's killing so many people really needs to be addressed and understood, that it could happen to anyone.
And the clock is ticking as officials are still scrambling to find solutions to this crisis. In 2016, an opioid epidemic was declared in Canada. Since then, it has taken the lives of over 38,000 people nationwide and counting. In part 2 of this story, we'll take a closer look at what's being done to prevent more senseless deaths. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.